Hello everyone, my name is Elisande, and today I will be talking about the Dungeon Knight group bot and how it works. We're going to start off by talking about some of the restrictions of the bot, and then we'll go into how the bot forms groups and what you can do if you don't like how you're getting grouped by the bot. So to start out, I want to talk about one of the restrictions, which you can see here on the screen, which is that the bot will not let you list unless you have an item level of at least 245. This will change from season to season as item levels change, but every season there will be some minimum, and the bot will not let you list unless you meet at least that minimum. That minimum will be below what the heroic item level is, so you'll always be able to get to that minimum by doing heroics if you don't qualify for mythics. The next restriction is key level. What can you list yourself for? Now here the bot uses something that you aren't shown in the game in any way, and I want to talk about it a little bit, which is called your average highest key. So what does average highest key mean? What the bot does is it looks at every key that you've run for the entire season. For each of those keys, it looks at both weeks, fortified and tyrannical, and it takes the highest key that you've completed. You don't need to have timed it, that you've completed for each dungeon, and then averages those out. So as an example here, we're looking at a Raider.io page for my Warlock Malignancy. What the bot is going to do is it's going to come down and say, okay, Gambit, both of these are 19s, so I'll just pick a random 19. For Streets, I've got a 17 on Fortified and 18 on Tyrannical, so we'll take the 18. For Lower, I have an 18 on Fortified, a 14 on Tyrannical, so it'll take the 18. These are both 16. Here, it'll take the 16 over the 15, the 17 over the 15, and then both of these are both 15, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll take all of these, add them all up, divide them by 8 to get the average, which is 16.7. And then it will round this up to 17. Now, if the bot only let you list for keys up to 17, that wouldn't be fantastic because on average I've run 17, so I've already done those, right? And I'm trying to do better than what I've been doing. So the bot takes this number and allows you to list for keys up to 2 levels higher. So in this case, Malignancy would be able to list for keys up to 19. This is just to ensure that groups are consistent and people aren't listing themselves for keys that they've never done anything that high, and lowers the group's chance of actually being able to succeed at that level of key. So if you want to be able to list for higher keys, you need to do more dungeons. That will help improve your average item level or your average highest run, which will get this number up, which will allow you to list for higher keys, which will be important when you see how the bot forms groups. The last thing I want to talk about in restrictions is that if you list yourself for a key, because let's say, I can list for up to 19, but for some reason, Malignancy's item level is like 250. 250 is really, really low for a 19. So the bot will give you a warning if your item level is very low compared to the key that you're trying to listing for. Please pay attention to that warning. If your item level is too low for the keys you're trying to run, it lowers the group's chance of success. And so, as a courtesy to others, if you see that warning, please consider turning down your key. Just because you could list for up to a 19 doesn't necessarily mean that you should, and you should think about the other people that you'll be playing with when you're considering what you're listing yourself for. Okay, so that's it for restrictions. Let's get into how the bot works. So this is the Dungeon Knight UI. You may or may not have seen it, depending on whether or not you use the Discord bot. But either way, you don't need to worry about knowing it. So here we're going to talk about how the bot makes groups. The bot follows a couple of very simple rules and uses what's called a greedy strategy, which you'll maybe understand why as we go through this. So the first rule is high to low. It tries to put people into the highest key possible that they've listed for. So, let's say that you're a Blaze in this case, and you're listed for a 21. He's right here at the top of the list. The bot is going to try to put you in a 21. If it can't, then it will start going down until it finds a group that it can put you in. The second, we'll look at an example of that here in just a second, so don't worry if you don't quite follow yet. The second rule is it will not put you in a group for a key that is below your minimum. So if you have your minimum set to a 10, for instance, and the bot is trying to form a group for a 9, it will not put you into that group because you said, hey, I don't want to do anything lower than a 10. The next rule is it doesn't consider it to be a group until there are at least 3 people who can group together in that group. So if it can only find 2 people who want to do 21s, for instance, it will not form a group for 21s because we only have 2 people. And the last rule is it tries to fill the tank and the healer slots in the groups first. So if you have people who are listed for multiple roles, it will push them into the tank or healer positions first in order to make sure that those get filled, since obviously those are super important when it comes to dungeons. Okay, so following these rules, let's look at this real world example here. I say real world, this is all fake data from my test server, so don't worry if the roles or the item levels seem a little weird if you know these characters, because I tweaked them manually. But let's look at how the bot would form the groups here. So remember, the bot tries to put you in the highest key that you can, so it's going to start by considering a blaze here. And for a blaze is listed for up to level 21 keys. Now there's no one else who's listed for level 21 keys, and because a group needs 3 people, it's not going to form a group here. So a blaze is just by himself. It says, oh, okay, I can't form a group for a blaze. Let's keep considering more people. So next we get down here to Salandra, and Salandra is listed for an 18. So now we have 2 people who are listed for keys 18 or higher, so it's trying to form a group for 18s, but it's still only got 2 people, which doesn't meet the minimum of 3, so it still doesn't form a group yet. So now we go down to Malignancy and Despicable, who are both my characters, so they wouldn't be grouping together, but stay with me here for a moment, who are both listed for 17s. So now we have 4 people who can do 17 or higher keys, so it's going to try to form a group to do a 17. Now, what it's going to do is for the tank slot for this group is it's going to see that Despicable only has tank selected, so it's going to slot Despicable into the tank slot for this group, and then we'll end up with 3 DPS, Malignancy, Salandra, and a Blaze. And because we've now got more than 3 people, this will end up being group 1. So we'll say G1 here. So even though there are healers looking for group, none of them can do a 17. So it will not like try and keep going to get the healer in there. Instead, it will form the group at 4 people. So if you've ever seen the bot spit out a group that's like 4 people or 3 people, and you were wondering why, this is a very common scenario here. Okay, so that's group 1. Now let's move on to group 2. So first we come down here to Sandara, and Sandara is listed for a 12. So the bot is going to say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to try and put Sandara in a group for a 12. But right now, since this group 1 has already been formed, there's nobody else looking for a 12 yet, so we don't do anything with Sandara. Then we come down here to Absorb, who's also looking for a 12. Okay, so now we have 2 people for a 12. Fantastic, but doesn't meet the 3 people minimum, so let's keep going. We come down here to Obumbrata, who is listed for a 9, and now we've got 3 people. Yay! But not yay! So while we do have 3 people, 2 of these people can't group together because they're both only listed as heals, and you can only have 1 healer per group. So we actually only can form a group of 2 people, even though we've got 3 people who could do this level of key. So we can't form a group yet. Let's keep going. We come down here to Lilo, who's looking for an 8. Now we have 4 people who can do an 8 or higher, but now we have 3 healers, all of whom can't group together. So we still only have a group of 2 people. So we'll continue on. We come down here to Tish and Salome, who are both listed for 6s. So now we have 3 DPS and 3 healers, 6 people total, all looking for who could go do level 6 keys. So we know we're going to form a group because we have 3 DPS at a minimum, so we're definitely going to have the 3 minimum for a group. And then we also have 3 healers. Now what the bot will do here is it will pick one of the healers at random. So it doesn't care about like, who was listed for the highest key or the lowest key or whatever. And if this case happens, it will just pick one of the healers at random. And let's just say that that happens to be Sandara for this case, right? Just at random, it decides to pick Sandara. So what that means is that Absorb and Lilo will not be part of this group. So here we go. The green folks will be group 2. G2. All right, so now we've got a couple of people left over. Let's take a look at them. So the people left are Absorb, Lilo, and Zul'Aumar. It's going to try to form a group for these people, doing level 2 keys, which is the minimum that Zul'Aumar is listed for here. But we have 1 tank and 2 people who are listed only as healers, Absorb and Lilo, which means since Absorb and Lilo can't group together, it means we have only a group of 2, so it will not form a group. So what's going to happen here is when we form groups, Ablaze, Salandra, Malignancy, and Despicable will be in group 1 for level 17 keys. Sandara, Obumbrata, Salome, and Tish will be in group 2 doing level 6 keys. And Absorb, Lilo, and Zul'Aumar will all be in the waiting list because there isn't 3 people who can group together to form a group. And so it's not going to assign any of them in there. And again, even though Absorb and Lilo both could have been put into a group, the bot will just randomly pick one of the 3 eligible healers to actually put in the group that gets formed. So that's it. That's how the bot forms groups. If you are getting put into the lower groups on a regular basis, there's 2 fundamental reasons why that's probably happening. The first one is your average highest key might be too low. So if you're only running keys on Mondays, and then what potentially can happen is, of course, your character is going to start out low when they haven't done anything yet, and you're only doing 2 to 3 keys, per week. Then your average highest dungeon is also going to stay low because it's going to put you in the lower groups because that's the best you've completed. And so then it's going to be hard to get listed into the higher stuff because you'll end up being towards the bottom of the list and you'll have lower level keys. So that's one thing. The other thing that could happen, which is what you see here, is Sandara and Obumbrata are listed for 12 and 9, respectively. But in order to actually find a group of 3 or more people that can group together, we have to come down to where Salome and Tish are looking for 6s. So Sandara, who wants to do 12s, is actually getting put in a 6 group because there's not enough people in her range of 12 to actually form a group out of. Now, if you don't want this behavior because, if Sandara says, oh, well, I'm looking for 12s, but I'm not willing to do a 6, make sure to set your minimum key level. That will stop the bot from slotting you into a group that is lower than what you're hoping to do. That being said, the main point of doing dungeons with the guild is to, group with your guildies. So I'd say, if you're looking for something in particular, don't feel bad about setting your preferences that way. But if you're okay with doing lower dungeons, if it means you get to, run with your guildies and do a group, then I suggest keeping your minimum dungeon level set low. That way it increases the chance that you'll get put into a group, which also increases the chance that we'll actually be able to form multiple groups. So that's how the bot works. If you have any questions, you can always message me on Discord or in game and ask me. I'd be happy to tell you more about it. I hope this has been educational and resolves some of the mystery about how the bot works. And thank you for listening.